make people very uncomfortable, and it's because I've finally gotten to this point with my vegan journey where I am just very straightforward, and I walked into one of my classes the other day, and one of my friends had a coffee with cow milk in it, and I think I said something along the lines of, like, I don't want any dead baby cow juice in my coffee, or something along the lines of how it was dead baby cow juice. And I think that half the time people either get very uncomfortable or they think that I'm joking to a certain degree. But when I call something dead baby cow juice, it's because a little baby calf was forced into a slaughterhouse against their will just so that you can steal the breast milk that was meant for them. And that's why I call it that, because I want people to think about it, and actually call it like it is, because nobody talks about how it's standard practice to kill maybe male baby cows in the dairy industry. And if you're walking into a coffee shop or a grocery store and purchasing dairy products, then that's what you're paying for. And it's the same with anything else, like if people have a sandwich and it has meat on it, I'll be like, oh, that's pig flesh, because that's what it is. We change how we talk about these things to make ourselves more comfortable, because it sounds better if we say bacon or pork or beef or whatever else, however we're changing these names, but we don't call it dead cow or dead pig. And it's because we don't want to think about it. Because if we really think about it, I think a lot of us would be uncomfortable. If all of these meat eaters or people that are eating like animal secretions, if they had to watch a video of how that was produced, then I feel like people would be extremely put off by it. And it just makes sense, and they're like, oh no, don't show me that, that's gonna put me off my food. And it's just like, if you can't even bear to watch it happen, then how do you think that it's okay to pay for it? Because you're the reason that it's happening. And when you walk into a supermarket and you're purchasing those body parts of those animals, I think a lot of people think about it and they're like, oh, well, they're already dead. And it's like, yes, but by purchasing that, you're paying for another animal to die. Because it's supply and demand. Because if they know that you want that and that you'll purchase it, they're gonna, kill more animals in order to like fulfill that demand. And I just want people to really think about it, because I wish someone would have been more straightforward with me when I was vegetarian, because nobody came up to me and said, I need you to go vegan. Like, you need to go vegan because these animals are suffering. And if someone would have said that to me, I know I would have changed in a heartbeat. I would have been like, oh, I'm contributing to animal suffering. I need to stop. And it's so easy for us. I think that that's part of the problem too, is we need to really put things into perspective. And it's just like, if these animals were being killed in our bedroom right next to us every time we wanted to consume their flesh or their secretions or whatever, then we'd be horrified and we'd stop doing it. But it's just like, at what distance do we become comfortable with it? Is it when it's happening 10 feet away from you? Or is it when it's happening, behind closed doors and you can't see it? Does then it suddenly become moral and ethical for it to happen just because you're not seeing it? Or is it still wrong? And I think that's what we have to do. We have to really work to challenge these norms that make it seem like it's normal, natural, and necessary to consume animal products when it's not. And we have to challenge that partially through our language, by just being more straight up about it, And of course you have to know your audience and be aware of that. And it's not going to be a one size fits all, but like, I'm friends with a lot of people or a decent amount of people that aren't vegan, and I know that they can take it through our friendship, and I think that I would want someone to do that for me. If I was conditioned to hurt dogs or cats and I just absolutely wasn't thinking about it and I was just consuming these products on a daily basis, or the conditioning was so deep that even though someone had talked to me, I continued to eat those products, then I would want someone to keep talking to me and be like, hey, this is wrong. You know, you need to change. You shouldn't be contributing to the suffering of these dogs and cats, however that might be happening. And it's just, it seems very straightforward to me. And I feel like as vegan activists, a lot of times we feel like we're being more straightforward than we are. When I was studying abroad in Western Australia, one of my flatmates was, I think, making chicken, and I said to my other flatmate, I was like, ooh, that makes me really sad. And I remember doing things like that a few times, like I would make those little comments being like, hopefully this is making a difference, like I feel like I'm being very straightforward. Eventually I took her to a James Aspie speech, we talked about everything afterwards, and she's completely vegan now and does activism. And I remember asking her, I was like, do you ever remember me making those comments before you were even vegetarian, just being like, oh, this makes me sad, or whatever else I would say? And she was like, no, I have no recollection of that. And so I think that we assume, just because as activists we're also, I feel like, partially conditioned to be very aware of how we're coming off to other people, and I think that we assume that we're being more straightforward than we actually are. And so since that happened, I'm like, man, I should just be straight up about it. You know, like one of my friends was talking about consuming mozzarella sticks in class the other day, and I was like, is that really worth killing a baby calf? You know, do you think that mozzarella stick is worth it to send an innocent little baby calf into a slaughterhouse just for them to be shot in the head and hung upside down and have their throat slit? You know, and I totally get how it would come across as extreme for me to be saying these things because of our society, you know, but at the end of the day, I'm just telling the truth. And I don't have any personal investment here. I think that people kind of forget that. I mean, of course, I want people to go vegan just for ethical reasons and to help the animals, but like the meat, the egg, and the dairy industries, they have billions of dollars riding on this, you know? And so if people are going out and trying to educate others, it's just like the meat and the egg and the dairy industry are going to work so hard to stop that from happening, or to try and, you know, just put advertisements everywhere. Every time we turn on the TV, every time we drive down the freeway, we see advertisements for these products, and it's being pushed on us, and to a certain degree it's subconscious, you know, but you watch something on the screen and they're advertising this big juicy beef burger and it makes you want it, you know? And so, but I think that even though society has conditioned us, it's not an excuse to not do the right thing. And that's what's kind of made me more comfortable about this, is I know I make certain people uncomfortable, and I think certain people just kind of accept that I'm very straightforward about it, but I feel like if you know what's happening to these animals, you know the massive amount of suffering that you're contributing to, and you decide to continue to contribute to that suffering, I think that if you're purposefully doing the wrong thing, that you should be made uncomfortable. And I would say the same thing about someone who was abusing a dog. I think that if you are knowingly contributing to that animal suffering and not taking steps to change, then you need to be talked to about it. You know, I would just say the same thing for someone who is racist or homophobic or transphobic or was abusing other animals. I think that we should be held to a higher standard in terms of doing the right thing. And I'm not saying that people have to go vegan overnight. I just think that once you have this information, that you have an obligation to make a change, you know, and it has to be deliberate. And I think that we need to be setting goals for ourselves, because if you don't and you're not very deliberate about it, I feel like it's easy to fall back into the idea that it's normal and natural and necessary to consume these products because we're conditioned to believe that. And so if we're not actively trying to make that change, I don't know if we'll actually change, because we need to set those goals for ourselves. So I really like the 22-day vegan challenge that you can sign up for online, because the idea behind it is that it takes 21 days to create a habit. So if we're able to do it for 22 days, then we've successfully created that habit, and it's going to be much easier from that point on. And so I really, really, really highly encourage people to sign up for that challenge, hold yourselves to that 21 days, and then continue with it. And or if you need to, just focus on veganizing one meal a day, you know? So it's like, hey, how can I make my breakfast vegan? I usually do eggs on toast, so I'm gonna make avocado toast from now on. Or I'm gonna do cereal but put soy milk in it. And it's just like, at that point, it's like, okay, I've got breakfast down, you know? And then it's just, I think people overthink it too. Like, you can eat the same things that you're eating now, just make them vegan. So for lunch, I'm gonna do a burrito. I'm gonna do some spaghetti. Like, it's not hard to veganize things. And it's so easy. If you ever can't think of anything, just Google vegan recipes and a ton will pop up. And so I'm just like, it's the inconvenience of us having to make this change does not even compare to the inconvenience of being forced into a slaughterhouse or being raised and abused within the dairy industry and having all your kids stolen from you, or having all your male boys shot in the head, or being a baby male chick in the egg industry and being pushed into a literal blender. I think you having to make an egg substitute instead of buying chicken's eggs at the store doesn't compare to the inconvenience of being pushed into a literal emaciator. And this is why we need to be spreading this, because people don't think about it in that way. They're not thinking about the victim that their actions have. And so once we raise this awareness and really talk about the suffering that these animals are going through, I think most logical, reasonable, compassionate human beings would put that together and understand. And I just want to encourage everyone, if you've been looking for a sign to go vegan, please let this be it, because these animals are dying at a horrific rate. And we can stop it by just changing what we eat. And it's like, if you can't even change what you eat, how do you expect to change the world in any way?